Greetings, everyone. Today, we're going to do an overview of how to access and utilize the UMD projection dashboard available on UM Dashboards. When I click on the link available on the analytics.umd.edu site, brings me into the UMD dashboard launcher. At the bottom right, you can see the UMD projection dashboard button. When I click on this, it's going to open up a new tab in the browser and refresh and display a listing of accounts. The listing of accounts are available and tied to the KFS user security. It should match what you have access to today on KFS Web and also in UMD dashboards if you're a current user. From here, I can see a listing of all of my accounts. And as I scroll down, it will highlight the different and columns that are available on the dashboard. Going from left to right is we first have the revised expense budget, and that's to show you what your budget is on the account, as opposed to the net revenue between the revenue and expense, which would be zero. We wanted to show a figure that you can see what the budget was on here, so we chose expense budget. These are the revenue actuals, so if you look this up on your income statement on the KFS 090 web, you will see this number posted to the account on revenues. This is the expense actuals that have also hit the account and the encumbrances that are available on the account. The important note here is that the encumbrances on this dashboard actually include fringe encumbrances where the KFS reports do not. So you will find a difference in there, and we will demonstrate that as we drill through into the object code details in a minute. We also have the calculation for projected actuals. The projected actuals are done through a list of assumptions and expressions that are done to calculate based upon certain inputs throughout the year. This dashboard is displaying totals as of period 6, which is December, and they should tie to those figures. We also have a marker on the account of what the beginning fund balance is, and the projected fund balance is the projected fund balance for the year end in the fiscal year that we're reviewing. In this case, fiscal year 24. So that is just a sum of the projected actuals plus the beginning fiscal year fund balance, which in this case adds up to just over $500,000. As I click down into the account, it will give me a listing by revenue and expense, and I can expand out. A great way to look at this, if I'm a user trying to identify if I have to make adjustments, is on this front page back here, you can see that we've highlighted any amount that's over $100,000. And what we can do is simply sort on each one of these columns. And if I sort on the projected actuals column and projected fund balance, I could see maybe some of my trouble accounts that I want to review first. So in this case, for this exercise, I'm going to review this first account, the projected actuals of $549,000. This account, as I can see, is a projected deficit. That's why it's highlighted red. If it's not highlighted in red, it's below the 100,000 threshold, or we're projecting a surplus, and the surpluses are shown as negative value. So this would be, in this case, for this account, would be an increase in fund balance. Sorting back, if I look at this account and drill through back into the revenue and expense, if I look across, I can still follow these same lines here. So if I expand this out, I can see all the object codes. If I keep it collapsed and just look across the revenue row, and I see that my revised budget equals my current revenue, which actually equals the projected revenues, or projected actuals, I should say, and the budget versus actual is 0. So at a quick glimpse, I can tell that this account and this revenue is probably not worth my attention, since it looks like there's no difference between the projected, the budget, and the actual revenues that hit the account. I can expand it to take a look at what is actually comprising that at the object code level. And for this account, since it's a state account, we can see it's the 0221 state allocation. If I expand out expense, I can now see all the object codes comprising the expenses. If I run across here and look, and then I sort, the best way to do this, the best recommended practice, is to sort on this budget versus projected actuals. Is now I can quickly see, looking at the object code level, I can see budget expense encumbrance and the projected actuals, and then see the variances here. So you can see the projected actuals is over $500,000, and the revised budget is only about $200,000. So that's why we're seeing a difference of over almost $350,000 on this object code, because it appears that this object code is under budgeted. So if I wanted to, I can do a review as a department user into the actual account itself. So when I pull up the account, I can look to see back into December, reviewing this expense at the salary wage 1016 to see this does indeed show that this account is about 136,000 in budgeted revenues, and I could see on this account is also anticipated to go over the budgeted amount. Furthermore, if I wanted to do additional research inside the income statement here, a good practice is to look back at your end of year, the prior year in 2023. Now I can look at 1016 and say, well, I indeed spent about $500,000 last year. My projected amount this year is about 536. So in this case, I'm not going to make an adjustment because it appears based upon last year's value that this is correct. Now, what I may want to do, depending on how my department is structured, is look at potentially making a budget amendment within the year to adjust this if it's possible, or look down the road at a future budget exercise to see if I can get 1016 budgeted. Final example, looking at the cost share transfer here, we can see that projected to be over by 182,000 as a deficit on the account. So these two are causing the vast majority added together, almost over $500,000 here, about 520 to 549. So these two object codes in themselves are causing the overages. But if I look at the cost sharing transfer, I can do the same exercise as I just did, looking at the income statement. And as I look at and then on the expense, I'm going to transfer on the non-mandatory transfers, and I'm going to look at my 9937. And as I can see, it is also with no budget. It shows what the actual fiscal year is. So it's showing on the BBA. Just to make a check, I'm going to do the same exercise as I did before with the 1016 object code and take a look back and see, well, how much did I spend in the prior year? And in this case, I spent almost $380,000. Now, cost share, of course, can vary from year to year. But what I'm really trying to do is verify, is this working as I anticipate? In fact, it's actually not, because this is, even though it's doubling expense on 9937, I think I'm actually going to spend about $300,000. So for me to make the adjustment, I fill out the adjustment form, punching in the account number, and then entering the object code of 9937, then entering a value of $300,000.